Welcome back for another deep dive. And this time we're really going deep, like down into the trenches of UFC drama.
Oh, yeah. This one's got all the ingredients. A title fight upset, a coach publicly blasting his own fighter, and a fighter battling some serious behind-the-scenes stuff.
Yeah, it's the Sean Strickland saga after UFC 312.
Yeah.
Like, we all expected him to lose to Duplessis. I mean, the guy is a beast.
Right, but it wasn't just the loss that had everyone talking, it was what happened afterward.
Exactly. His own coach, Eric Nicksick, goes on the Ariel Helwani show and just unloads on him. It's not every day you hear a coach publicly criticizing their fighter like that.
Yeah, especially someone like Nicksick, who's known for being pretty level-headed.
Yeah.
To call Strickland uninspired and say it looked like he was sleepwalking through the fight? I mean, come on, that's harsh.
It's like he was trying to send a message loud and clear. What was that quote again? About not feeling like Strickland was in it.
He said, "I didn't feel like he was in it the way he usually is," which is pretty damning. Because Strickland's known for his intensity, his aggression.
Right. So to hear his own coach saying he wasn't there mentally, that's a big deal.
And then Nicksick went even further, talking about the game plan?
Oh, yeah. He basically said Strickland wasn't following it. Something about jabbing and teeping not being enough.
Right. He said just jabbing and teeping your way to a comeback win wasn't going to work, which kind of implies that Strickland was being way too passive.
And for a guy like Strickland, who's known for his, walk him down style, that's a pretty big criticism.
Definitely. It's like Nicksick was saying Strickland wasn't fighting his fight. He was trying to win in a way that just doesn't suit him.
So you've got the coach throwing Strickland under the bus, basically, saying he wasn't mentally there and he wasn't following the game plan.
Ouch. Yeah, public shaming, like that's got hurt.
Right.
But then Strickland fires back with this response video, and things get really interesting.
This is where it gets juicy. Because Strickland, he's not one to hold back. He's brutally honest. And in this video, he basically lays out everything that was going on behind the scenes leading up to the fight.
It's not just like, oh, I had a bad weight cut or something like that. We're talking serious stuff.
He drops this bomb that he was battling a staph infection during his training camp, which for anyone who's ever had one, that is absolutely brutal, like debilitating.
It can knock you out for weeks. And then on top of that, he says he broke his arm and had visa issues that messed up his training even more.
So we're talking about a guy who's trying to prepare for a title fight, the biggest moment of his career, and he's dealing with a serious infection, a broken bone, and travel complications. That's insane.
Absolutely. It's like the universe was conspiring against him. And it makes you wonder, how much did all that impact his performance? Was he even close to 100% going into that fight?
Right. Because you see the result, you see the loss, but you don't always see what it took to even get to that point. The sacrifices, the setbacks, the sheer willpower to keep going when everything's telling you to quit.
It's a side of the sport that most fans never really get to see, and Strickland's video really brings it to light.
And what's crazy is that he still went ahead with the fight. He didn't pull out, he didn't make excuses, he just went in there and fought. There's something admirable about that, even if it wasn't his best performance.
Yeah, I mean, in his video, he says that entire fight camp was just a struggle, but opportunity never comes when it's supposed to. Sometimes you just have to sack up and go for it. I mean, talk about grit.
That's Sean Strickland in a nutshell, right?
Yeah.
No excuses, no sugarcoating, just raw, unfiltered honesty. And I think that's what makes him such a compelling figure, love him or hate him. You can't deny that he's authentic. He keeps it real.
And that's that authenticity that keeps us all glued to his story, right? Because what happens next? Does he crumble under the criticism? Or does he use it as fuel to come back even stronger?
That's the question we're all asking, isn't it? Stay tuned. Okay, so we're back. And Strickland's response video left us with a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
Like he says he's going back to the gym, starting from square one. What does that even mean?
Well, for a fighter like Strickland, starting from square one could involve some pretty big changes.
Like a whole new fighting style, a new training camp.
All of that is on the table, really. I mean, you got to think about the dynamic between him and Nicksick now. After that public criticism, can they even work together effectively at this point?
That's a good point, because it's not like Nicksick just gave him some constructive feedback. It was a full-on takedown in front of the entire MMA world.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to create some tension.
For sure. It would be tough for any fighter to come back from that and still feel like they have the full support of their coach, especially when there are other coaches and gyms out there who would probably welcome Strickland with open arms.
The switching training camps is a real possibility. I mean, wouldn't that be awkward, though, like leaving the coach who's been with you through thick and thin?
It happens all the time in MMA, actually. Sometimes a fighter just needs a fresh start, a new environment, a new approach to training. It's not always about loyalty. It's about finding the best fit for where you are in your career.
I guess it's kind of like breaking up with a therapist. You know, when you just feel like you've outgrown them or you're not getting what you need anymore.
Exactly. And in Strickland's case, it seems like he and Nicksick might be on different pages, especially in terms of fighting style. Remember what Nicksick said about the jab and teep strategy?
Yeah, it sounded like he wasn't impressed. Like Strickland was being way too hesitant, too passive.
And for a guy like Strickland, who's known for his aggression, his relentless pressure, that's a pretty big departure.
Right. So maybe a new coach would encourage him to go back to his roots, to be that stand and bang fighter that everyone knows and fears, or maybe they'd help him develop a more well-rounded game. So he's not just a one-trick pony.
That's the exciting part about starting from square one. It's a chance to reinvent yourself, to experiment with new techniques, new strategies, to become a more complete fighter.
But wouldn't that be tough at this stage in his career? I mean, he's not exactly a young prospect anymore. Can you really teach an old dog new tricks?
You'd be surprised, actually. There are plenty of examples of fighters who have made major changes to their style later in their careers and found success.
So it's not just about physical ability. It's also about mental flexibility, the willingness to learn and adapt.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes Strickland's story so fascinating. He's at a crossroads. He's coming off a tough loss. He's facing criticism from his own coach. But he's also got this fire in him, this determination to prove everyone wrong.
And we know he's not afraid to ruffle some feathers along the way. He's not going to just quietly disappear and come back as a completely different fighter. He's going to make some noise about it. We can count on that.
Oh, absolutely. Whatever changes he makes, you can bet he's going to let everyone know about it in his own unique way.
So he might be in for a wild ride, huh? A new training camp, a new fighting style, maybe some epic trash talk. It's like a whole new chapter is about to begin.
And I think that's what makes this situation so compelling. We don't know what's going to happen next, but we know it's going to be interesting.
But hold on a second. We're getting ahead of ourselves here. Because even if Strickland switches camps and revamps his fighting style, there's still a huge question mark hanging over his head. Can he overcome the mental hurdle of this loss?
That's the million-dollar question, right? Because it's one thing to change your technique, your strategy, but it's another thing entirely to rebuild your confidence after a setback like this.
Especially when you're dealing with all the other stuff he went through before the fight, the staph infection, the broken arm. That had to take a toll mentally, even if he doesn't admit it.
Right, because how do you go into a fight knowing you're not at 100%? Knowing that your body isn't fully cooperating, it's got to mess with your head.
And then you add the layer of Nicksick's criticism, basically saying he wasn't mentally there, that he choked. That's a lot to process.
It is, and I think that's where the starting from square one idea becomes really important. It's not just about physical changes. It's about addressing the mental side of things as well.
So it's like a mental reset, like erasing the whiteboard and starting fresh.
It's about finding a way to channel that frustration, that disappointment, into positive energy, to use it as fuel to come back even stronger.
But how do you do that? I mean, it's easy to say, I'm going to use this as motivation, but how do you actually make that happen?
It's not easy, that's for sure. It takes a lot of self-awareness, a strong support system, and a willingness to dig deep and confront your own weaknesses.
And maybe that's what this starting from square one thing is really about. It's about more than just changing camps or learning new techniques. It's about taking a hard look in the mirror and asking yourself, what do I need to do to be better? Not just as a fighter, but as a person.
And that's what makes this whole situation so compelling. Because it's not just about winning or losing fights, it's about growth, resilience, and the pursuit of excellence. And I think we can all relate to that on some level, whether we're athletes or not.
I think you're right. Because we all face challenges, we all have setbacks, and it's how we respond to those moments that defines who we are.
And that's why Strickland's story resonates with so many people. Because it's a reminder that even when you're at your lowest point, even when everything seems to be going wrong, you still have the power to choose how you move forward.
That's a powerful message.
Yeah.
And it makes me even more curious to see what happens next.
Yeah.
Because Strickland's story is far from over. This is just the beginning of a new chapter.
And who knows what twists and turns are waiting for him down the road. But one thing's for sure, we'll be here to break it all down for you. So stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive, where we'll take a step back and look at the bigger picture. What Strickland's journey tells us about the pressures of professional fighting and the lessons we can all learn from his story. It's going to be good.
Man, we've really gone deep on Sean Strickland, haven't we?
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. From that brutal loss to Duplessis to Nicksick's public criticism and then Strickland's response video. I mean, the guy just lays it all out there.
Yeah, and it makes you think, about the pressure these fighters are under. It's not just about winning or losing. It's their whole life.
Right. Like we see the highlights, the knockouts, the trash talk. But we don't always see what goes on behind the scenes. The sacrifices, the struggles, the mental and physical toll that this sport takes.
And Strickland's story really puts that into perspective. I mean, here's a guy who's trying to prepare for a title fight. And he's dealing with a staph infection, a broken arm, visa issues. It's like everything that could go wrong did go wrong.
It's insane. And yet he still went ahead with the fight. He didn't make excuses. He just showed up and fought. Which takes a certain kind of grit.
Yeah, you got to respect that, that never give up attitude. But it also makes you realize that these fighters are human too.
Yeah.
They're not invincible. They have doubts. They get injured. They make mistakes.
And sometimes they break down, like the pressure gets to be too much. And we've seen that happen to a lot of fighters. They lose that fire, that drive. And it's hard to come back from that.
Which makes you wonder, right, where does Strickland go from here? Can he bounce back from this? Or is this the beginning of the end?
That's the question we're all trying to answer. And I think it comes down to his mindset. Can he use this experience as fuel to come back stronger? Or will it break him?
Because we've all been there, right? Not the UFC, obviously, but in life, we all face setbacks. We all have moments where we feel like giving up.
Exactly. And it's those moments that define us. It's how we respond to adversity that shows our true character.
And I think that's what makes Strickland's story so compelling. Because it's not just about fighting. It's about overcoming challenges, about resilience, about believing in yourself, even when everyone else doubts you.
It's a human story, really. And I think that's why people are so drawn to it, because we all want to see him succeed. We all want to see him prove the doubters wrong.
Yeah, it's like we're all rooting for him, in a way, because we see a bit of ourselves in him, that fighter inside all of us, that part of us that wants to never give up.
And I think that's what we can all take away from this deep dive. It's not just about Sean Strickland. It's about the power of the human spirit to overcome obstacles, to persevere, to achieve greatness.
I think you nailed it. And hey, maybe that's what Strickland is doing right now. He's taken some time to reflect, to recharge, to start from square one, as he said. And who knows, maybe we'll see a whole new Sean Strickland emerge from this.
A wiser, stronger, more dangerous Strickland. I wouldn't want to be the guy standing across the octagon from him.
You neither? But hey, that's what makes this sport so exciting, right? The unpredictability, the drama, the human stories that unfold before our eyes.
Absolutely. And we'll be here to break it all down for you every step of the way.
So thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And remember, never give up on your dreams, even when the odds are stacked against you, just like Sean Strickland.
And just like us.